In a moment, my colleague Sean East will go through the budget. What I wanted to begin with was just an overview. I think that there are often people who come to gatherings such as this year after year and they get used to an organization and how they do their budgeting. But some people are here for the first time and some don't pay particular attention to the numbers. I want to give you an overview of MCEC's finances, and it's the same presentation that I could have given any previous year or any of the next 5 years, but I think it's important to understand some of the fundamentals. MCEC is a community of congregations that pool some of their resources to form an area church. MCEC's mission is to extend the peace of Jesus Christ through service to those congregations and by offering various supports and ministries. There are 4 primary sources of funding for MCEC, the largest of which is congregational giving, and for this we are thankful and we hope you pass that thanks on to the members of your congregation. We also have various funds. Some of these funds have been formed from estate gifts in the past, but MCEC receives estate gifts every year to replenish those funds, so it's a source of revenue that we're very grateful for. Donations from individuals and sponsors from businesses also are a source of revenue, and registrations for specific events. Of our operating revenue, 54% leaves MCEC and goes to our partners. You can see them there on the slide. Some as a percentage of our revenue and some an historic number. When you support MCEC, when your congregation supports MCEC, you support these partners. MCEC sets its budget each year according to what you collectively and individually tell us is needed. That happens to our staff, our councils, thoughtful reflection on what is working and what is not, what needs to change, what areas where more resources should be added, and where can efficiencies be found. The operations side of MCEC serves the ministry side. Operations plans events such as this, creates our website, communicates with you through good storytelling, managing our finances, and generally serves the ministry team. The ministry team, David, Henry, Brian, supported by Al and Linda, they have and will share stories with you over these 2 days, providing a narrative for how we are trying to pay close attention to your needs and the Holy Spirit's invitation to be part of God's mission. I'd now ask Sean to present this year's financial plan.
Thank you, Brent. I'd invite you all to turn to page 40 in your discernment documents. Page 40 gives a summary level explanation of the budget that we're proposing for our spending plan for this year, grouped into the various ministry areas and the other areas in which we spend our money. There are detailed schedules that I think are in the document as well, but I'm going to focus primarily on the summary page and give you a little bit of background on each of those areas as they pertain to the way that MCEC is proposing to operate and spend their money this year. The first comment that I would make is that the revenue at the top, so you'll see the sources of revenue that Brent was referring to for the most part. These are all external sources of revenue that come into MCEC from individuals or groups or congregations. The comment I wanted to make about those is that the revenue is merely a reflection of what we think we are going to get. Those of you that are treasurers in your congregations would be aware that we do try to send out documents to try to get a congregation to communicate to us what we might be able to expect in terms of giving to MCEC and MC Canada under the covenant agreement, but we tend to get about a third of those back. And so what we've done is tried to be as conservative as we can in estimating that the revenue that will come in terms of congregational giving, unless we have received a document that says otherwise, will come primarily in at basically the level that it was last year. So you'll notice that there is a slight increase. Most of that increase is due to the revenue change that I talked about last night, where there are contributions that your churches made in early February that last year would have been counted as part of the previous year, but this year are counted part of the new financial year 2016-17. This reflects a one-time change, and going forward every year when I'm up here, which will hopefully be for a few years, we'll be looking at apples to apples in terms of comparing the revenue that we have gotten into in each year. Overall, we are projecting a slight decrease again based on the information we've gotten in terms of the revenue that comes in from congregations. The reality is that we all know that our church budgets, and I pastor a church, so I'm aware of how this works. Our church budgets in many cases are declining, and so we have tried to factor in that kind of decline in terms of the giving that we forecast from congregations towards the covenant giving that is shared between us and MC Canada. In terms of what we're spending with our partner ministries, the top two lines on your partner ministries section, which is again the next section down on page 40, the Mennonite Church Canada and the Anabaptist Mennonite Biblical Seminary amounts are according to a covenant agreement between MCEC and MC Canada. It's a fixed percentage that gets shared with those organizations of all of the congregational givings that come into MCEC from your congregations. The balance of the figures on that list are usually historical figures that haven't been adjusted over the years for inflation, but also haven't been decreased. The only comment I would make is you'll notice that the amount going to the various camps this year has changed slightly from last year. There has been a several-year transition period to equalize the support that MCEC gives to the camps over the last few years, and this year now for budget 2017, we finally arrived at the place where that funding is equalized, and year over year now, subject to any changes that we might make for other budgetary reasons, these figures should stay constant and the same in terms of the way that we support the various camps that the Mennonite Church connects with and funds. I would point out again from what Brent said, 54% of the external revenue that we receive from investments, from congregational giving, and from individual donations ends up getting shared out to partner ministries. MCEC funds its operations with 46% of the external revenue that comes in, plus money that we draw from funds according to our financial policies. If we look at the internal operations of MCEC and the different ministry council schedules, there are a few notes that I would make. In terms of the executive council, the budgeted amount for this year is up because the delegates that travel to MC Canada and Saskatoon in the summer from and on behalf of MCEC are funded through the executive council budget. So there's an increased amount in that budget for this year to factor in the changes in travel costs and expenses that we're incurring in order to send our delegates to Saskatoon in July. Regional ministry, as David had mentioned when he was talking about the new directions for congregational ministry, the regional ministry expenses are budgeted to go up because we have allocated more of Al and Linda's time to be supporting all of your congregations in ways that perhaps congregational ministries would have in the past, while there's a transition going on to the way that we will support congregational ministry from the MCEC office and with our programs and initiatives. And so that amount has gone up to reflect an increased investment of staff time to continue to support congregations in the interim. David again explained because of this transition with congregational ministries, you'll notice that the budgeted amount for Congregational Ministries Council has gone down substantially. There's a couple comments I want to make about that. One, all of the programs that you have been used to seeing from congregational ministries in terms of youth retreats, junior youth retreats, Bible quizzing, and all of those kind of programs are factored into this budget. None of those programs or services or events have been changed or reduced because of what's going on with the congregational ministries transition. In addition to that, there's an amount of $65,000 that's budgeted to be able to engage outside consultants or people on a contract basis to be able to help out in areas where congregations would need some support and would traditionally have turned to the Congregational Ministries Council or Congregational Ministries Minister in order for that kind of support. So we have tried to include in this budget an amount that will still continue to support all of your congregations and continue to provide the services that you're used to seeing while we're making this transition. In terms of the program or the operations budget, there is a slight reduction in the amount that we anticipate to spend, which is mostly due to staff efficiencies and the way that the office has become structured with the transitions that have occurred during the year. But again, the programs that we've been used to seeing out of operations are continuing to be supported. We're continuing to support the other councils that are doing the work that they're doing, and the programs that you would be used to seeing in terms of support and resourcing for treasurers and other people in your congregations would continue the way that they have gone, as we have usually seen. So we are projecting at this point to be able to balance our budget. You'll see the second last line includes an amount that we draw out of our Faithful Steward Fund. So to remind you from what Brent said, the Faithful Steward Fund is a fund that goes up and down according to what we draw on it as a reserve, but also according to estate and other gifts that end up being applied into that account, and on interest that we earn on the investments with the money that has come out of that account. And so the balance of the account will not go down by $164,000 over the course of this year, but according to the policy of that fund, 15% of the balance of that fund as of February 1st, 2016, it gets brought into operations in order to support the operations of MCEC and the efforts that we make to support the congregations that are part of MCEC as well. And so that $164,491 number is the 15% of what the balance was at the beginning of the year. So when that's applied, we anticipate being able to stand up here next year and present that we have no deficit or no surplus, but that our budget will be balanced. I don't know if there's questions at this time or what comes next.